Justin, we made it. Happy to have you on the show. And I know that you started at McKinsey, and McKinsey's I think that's like a place most people want to get like a job. And that's what you started like right out of school. Like it's like a very competitive place to start because you have McKinsey on your resume and that opens up like a lot of doors. What was that process like, and what did you learn at McKinsey that led you to what you're doing now, helping small business owners with their strategies?
So, just a quick clarification. I didn't start at McKinsey. I actually never worked directly for McKinsey. I led a lot of bosses that were ex McKinsey. One of my last bosses was ex BCG. So I've worked with a lot of the ex consulting firm folks. But I really worked in biotech as like that was like really my last job and really like my only serious job.
Oh, what were you doing there? What was that?
Yeah, so it was a rare disease. So I'm in Boston, and my kind of push at that time was like, saving the world a bit. And so we did rare disease research. I was originally in like the supply chain logistics side, um, then became more of like a project manager across their 20 or so trials, and like commercial products as well. But we got, I think it was 4 drugs approved within 5 years, which is insane considering. So yeah, that's kind of my start of the business in my start of the kind of the corporate life.
4 drugs in 5 years. That's like insane numbers, right? Like some people work their whole life and never get it approved.
Oh yeah, I mean before that, I think the average drug trial takes about 10 years. So we got super lucky. The first one was like a huge win, and they all kind of just trickled in at that point. Rare diseases itself are very difficult to get approved. Super hard. You have to get enough people in a trial. So it's a very difficult space. I wouldn't recommend anyone unless you really want to do it. It is really tough to get it approved.
And what was like? How did you end up in that in that area? Like, did you get there like out of school? Like, I want to understand your journey a little bit.
Yeah, so right out of college, I kind of like traveled around. I was like the most stereotypical, like didn't know what I wanted to do. I got a job as a fraternity consultant. I just kind of like hung out, drank beer, traveled around the country. It was great. It was a great job. They put me up in Chicago. Then I moved to they moved me then to work in New Haven, Connecticut, which is where Yale is. And I got friendly with a lot of the Yale folks. I would say that was probably the first like, oh, I could actually like hold my own intelligence wise, because I'm not from like a educated background. My parents aren't dumb, but like they're not Yale professors or anything. And you realize like everyone's kind of the same, and so after kind of speaking with them, like, speaking with people who are, quote unquote, like the brightest in their fields, um, I ended up going back where my parents are from, working in tech. I was doing like some project management stuff for a few different companies, and then went into biotech. Kind of just I got lucky, got on a whim, got in at the company. Like they got approved, and they needed someone quick, and I was kind of there to fill in that gap and kind of grow from there.
Gotcha. So you went from fraternity life to Ivy League life.
Yes, yes.
So when you were working like as the fraternity consultant, like what was going through your mind in terms of figuring out like what you want to do? Because I don't know much about being a fraternity consultant. I do know whenever I saw someone who's like a fraternity consultant, they're like 40, 50 years old and they're still doing that. It was just a little strange that like they are still living the college life a little bit.
Yeah, they would never do like 40 or 50 for us. It was always like 1 to 2 years out of college. Which honestly, like I recommend if you're not sure of what you want to do, which I really know most men 22 years old have no idea. Um, you can kind of go like if you're a killer and you know what you're gonna do and you know you're gonna do this, like go for it, like do that, whatever. But I think a lot of people they either fall into the trap of like going to work at a corporation like a Deloitte or something or Ernst and Young. They're working 100 hours a week. They like bald before they even turn like 23, and they're just it's so hard to get out of that trap because you're just it's good enough. The pay is fine, like it's nothing excellent, but you're already kind of locked in, and it's actually pretty sad. I didn't want to do that. A lot of my buddies did do that right out of college, and I just got lucky again. Like I think a lot of it just comes down to luck. I really didn't want to go into anything serious. I wanted to travel around, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to go and work at one of those accounting firms. So for me, it was a little bit of a like extend the college life. I would never do it if I was 50. I think that's way too old, even 40. Now, if I ever went back to fraternity, I wouldn't know what to do. I would just be like so out of place. But I do think it's a good way to just kind of like delay the adulthood a bit. And certain men, I think they do need to do that.
So by delaying essentially the real world during that time, what did that do for your mindset in order to help with your next chapter?
I think the biggest thing is you realize two things. Number one, being 22 and you're in a fraternity at your own school, where I mean I had a great life where I went to college, 4 great years. You can kind of like remain friends with relationships and both men and women and kind of like keep it going. And you see this in the fifth year and the sixth year turns, and it's like you just start. It's like delayed, but it's comfortable delay.
Mm.
When you go to another school, you're a nobody. Like no one knows you. You have no relationships. I'm from Boston. I know tons of people in the Boston area. I know no one in Seattle. When I went to University of Washington, I had no one. There's not even a conversation that I can have to someone where I am like, oh, I know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows you. It's just so far fetched. So you're immediately like not very cool, and that was really weird for me. Like, it's just like it's hard to just kind of be a fish out of water. You do feel kind of old, I think, by nature, and that's really powerful. Like, you kind of mature naturally in that progression. So I think it gives you that sense of like being a little too old for that crew, even if they're only a year or two younger than you. It's like it just feels weird. And then you do have to be a little bit more serious. But for me, like I just got to travel around. Like if I wasn't hanging out with the older brothers in that area, I would just walk around the campus. I mean, every campus is beautiful. I think you do get to see kind of how the other half lives through every school, and all the little quirks that you think are like totally weird are like so normal in other places, and things that they think are like weird are like what are completely common in yours. So yeah, I think it's a good starter job. I think the pay isn't great, but you get a lot of life experience.
Yeah, it's weird when you move somewhere in the same country, yet everything is different.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of these people, they move to like Bali or Colombia or Mexico or whatever. Um, I think you realize how valuable relationships are when you start traveling. Um, who are you going to call when you're sick as a dog? Like, what are you gonna? How are you going to do that? Like, you do. There is a lot of value that's missed, I think, in just being in the same place over and over, and realizing the relationships you have.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people who like travel the world and like never want to grow up, I'm always kind of like, that looks cool. Like part of me is like, oh, that's cool. Like I want to do that. The other part of me is kind of like, I feel like this person, like, what is this person running away from? Like, are they like going from place to place? It's kind of like it looks fun on social media, like when you see like the beautiful pictures, but like deep down, it's kind of like, hey, like you're just going from place to place. Like, what's going on? What's going on there? Because having a community and having a home base, as Dorothy said, there's no place like home.
Definitely, definitely.
So you're working as a fraternity consultant. Then you, that's when you went up to like Ivy, Ivy and Yale, and you were doing what there?
So there was I think I went to about 30 schools in like 40 weeks or something like that, or maybe it was like 20 schools in 30 weeks. Um, it was a grind, and then you get the summer off, so it was a great situation. They were having issues at Yale, which was one of their chapters at the time. Nothing big, but just like they needed to grow their expansion there. So I met a lot of the brothers at Yale, and then I met a lot of the grad students. What I ended up doing often was hanging out. If you're 23, you know, 18, 19, 20-year olds, that's like a totally different language than you know. So I would hang out with the grad students a lot. If you're 23 and you're getting an MBA, like you're my kind of guy. And so I ended up befriending a few of those guys and realizing like, a lot of grad students, they don't start at the Yales as well. They go to the state schools and then they go there. So you can really kind of see like all different walks of life. I don't think anyone at Yale, I mean, I know some brilliant people, but I don't think MIT was the only school where I was like, I am not smarter than these people. And honestly, I don't want to be that smart. They're like too smart to their own detriment. Everyone else is like pretty much a normal person. Maybe they matured a bit earlier. Maybe they had really good training and teaching, or maybe really good like home life. But for the most part, I think everyone has their own pros and cons, and I don't think anyone's really that much smarter than I've come across.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about what you do with the experiences that you have. Obviously, going to like an Ivy League school or a prominent school, you definitely, the goal isn't like the learning. The goal is like getting around other people that have like big hopes, dreams, aspirations. I remember I was doing like a talk at a college, and I said, meet as many people as you can and be nice to everyone, because you just never know like who's gonna show up one day or who's gonna make it. And you have that contact, you make that connection, you were nice to that person when no one was nice to them, and that could be the ultimate difference maker. Because when you go outside like college life, it's hard to meet people, especially if you're in a new city, new town, and no one knows how cool you are.
Definitely true. And honestly, like most people's, like, I think there are some people who are raw intellect, and that's great, but there's so much more to intelligence than just like pure IQ. Soft skills, conversations, trust, like being a trustworthy person. Those are things that are just as important in the business world and in the real world, and they're really powerful. So if you, I'm not the smartest person by any means, but I think if you blend all that stuff together, everyone kind of balances out.
Yeah, I like to tell people I know a lot about a little.
Yeah,
I
perfect.
just
That's me
stay
too.
I just stay in my little area, and other things I know nothing about, and that's okay. I don't want to know everything. That's what the internet's for. If I need to find something, I could find it quite easily, especially with AI nowadays. It's pretty crazy how fast you can do something, even if you have like
Definitely.
no background in it. Like I coded like an entire little like game just using Chat GPT. It was like a how fast can you spend $1 trillion game.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I only took like one programming class like in college, and that was it. But it's pretty
Hmm.
crazy how if you take the time to put something to work and put in some effort, what kind of result you could get. And is after that, is that when you started your your company, or was there a little bit of a lull? I want to understand what that journey was like.
Yeah, so when I was in biotech, I was there for about 4 years, and COVID hit. So I just wanted to make some extra cash. We, like, as a company, weren't doing much because everything with the CDC and the FDA was focused on COVID, obviously, for good reason. So my goal was just like, how do I do something else? I have all these skills that are basically just white collar skills. So it's not like I can just like go out and like mow your lawn or something. So I went on Upwork. I really didn't know anything about Upwork at the time, but I started just trying to like pick off some clients and do some, Excel spreadsheets or PowerPoints. Doing that type of stuff was really powerful. You kind of see it from both the business owner's perspective, and you can also sell. You have to start selling yourself, which is something I had never done. So after a while, I did that, and again, I really did. I just kind of side hustled it until I realized I could start my own consulting group, you know, and get it more official and sophisticated way to help my clients.
And that is ACG. That's the name
Yes.
of your company.
Yeah.
So, what exactly are you doing to help companies with their strategies and growth and optimize their businesses? Let's walk through that workflow.
Yeah. So most of my clients are in that smaller business range. They're, they're very usually skilled at their one thing that they do, but they're looking to really grow and expand. I'd say 80% of our clients come to us either their revenue is down year over year or it's flat year over year.
Mm.
Um, and so the question is like, all right, how do we grow that? Everyone wants to do the 10x. We're going to 10x our revenue.
Grant
Immediately
Cardone,
squash it.
10x, 10x.
Yeah, it's easy to say. Why don't you just 50x it at that point? But
100x, 10x, 10x.
yeah, exactly. So the thing that we try and work on is being kind of a combination of a strategy consulting firm and a marketing agency. You'll notice, like, if you take a look at those two different industries, they're totally different. Marketing firms are focused on offense, playing offense and just going fast, and they just spend and grow. Strategy firms are much more defensive. They're usually brought in to, the CEO wants a second opinion on, should I buy this business? Or I'm thinking about, maybe we want to do this part of our business expansion. You need to defend it, or we need some due diligence. I try to think of us as kind of like playing a zone. It's like we're here to give you the strategies that are going to be in the right direction for your marketing, but we can also then use that information to then continually grow your business in the right way. So we're always aligned on the actual return on investment, not just the ROAS, which is like such a garbage metric because it uses, is based off of software which has 80% margins. If you're a landscaping company, you have 25% or 20% margins. So you cannot use a 3x ROAS. And so that's really where we kind of work in, is working on that ROI and kind of building that 360 view for the growth that's actually scalable.
Yeah, because I mean, for myself, I was like, man, I have one system that's working really well. Do I need to start creating other systems so that way I don't have, the system just decides to disappear one day or it doesn't work? I need to have like other systems. And I met with someone, they're like, well, why don't you just double down on this one system rather than try and create something new? And I was like, wow, that was such a simple answer. But when you're in the thick of it, sometimes it's hard to come up with the answers all by yourself. So is that the sort of things that you like walk through people through? Because like when you're in the business, sometimes it's hard to see other things that like someone like yourself might see very easily. Kind of like if you ever struggle like with a math question and you go up to your teacher, they're like, oh, you just forgot this. And you're like, How did I not see that?
Oh yeah, totally. I think that is the core value of a consulting firm is they get to see it across hundreds of clients. Everyone is just they're playing, they're working day in day out for that one company. Maybe they get hired at a second company, and so that's their historical. It's like, oh, I worked at McDonald's and now I work at Burger King, and so these are my two case studies that I can use. When you go and get your MBA at Harvard, particularly Harvard, they focus on case studies. Like,
Hmm.
what did McDonald's do to grow their revenue 20%? What did Geico do? And so this is something that consultants have such a unique lens on. They can actually look across hundreds of real world examples and say, this works or this didn't work. We should apply it to, Joshua's company.
Right. Well, I mean, in a small business, it's kind of like you're looking at a case study like Burger King, McDonald's. Those are pretty big companies. Like, how could that translate? Someone could say in small business, like, how does it, Justin, how does that translate to my business? I'm not McDonald's. I'm not Burger King. I'm not Geico. These companies are worth billions. I'm pretty sure billions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think like any business, like I work with plenty of clients that are smaller. Um, they have their systems in place. They know what they're doing right or wrong. They don't really know the grass can be greener on the other side. They could expand their business a million different ways. Every business has shiny object syndrome. I talk to every single client I have is like, how do I do AI? How do I use AI to do this? Or like, how do we expand more? Like, there's just so many different ways. So what I can do is I can walk you through all the different options, give you my personal thoughts. We marry that with your budget for the year and your kind of risk tolerance, and then we deliver and we just start getting in the operations and getting in the weeds and growing.
Hmm. So, what would you say is the most unconventional business that you're like helping with right now, and like what kind of problems are you seeing within that business?
Oh, it's a good question. Um,
I know it makes you think a little.
so I have a one business there, like they do like custom landscaping and like backyard design. Um, it's an extremely expensive product. They have to, you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're a local business, so they can only reach certain uh, people. So while I do like if you're typically focused on home service businesses, your average ticket price is maybe $20,000 to $30,000.
Hmm.
So what we had to do for these guys is really look at, you know, of all the businesses that you can look at, what are the ones that are selling $300,000 to $500,000 products? Looking at some of those cases, in my instance, I had never sold something that expensive directly. I've read case studies, I've worked with people, but I've never sold something that's $500,000. So, yeah, really the way to go about it is you look at the case studies, you try and find some companies, you go on ChatGPT, you say what are the top 20 industries that sell things over 500,000? How are they anchoring their pricing? What's their go-to-market strategy? Is it cold calls? Is it cold emailing? Is it Meta? Is it Google? Like, what is it? How interested are they in buying it? Can we, HubSpot, which is probably they don't sell 500,000, but they're probably in the, 20 to $50,000 range fee for the average client. They have a very like, let's get your email, let's start warming you up, let's get you in conferences. Like, will that work? Possibly, but you're capped out in local. So that's kind of the approach that I would do to any client. But for them specifically, it's such a uniquely expensive product. It's a bit harder to do this. So we had to get kind of um, sophisticated, unique, however you want to say it, but able to definitely move the needle for them.
Hmm. What was the solution? Did you eventually figure it out?
Yeah, so they're already growing. I'd say they're probably up 30 or 40% this year. It's honestly it's a combination of just figuring out what they're comfortable with, getting their business owners out, getting them to speak. Um, a lot of thought leadership. I think a lot of people don't realize they need something like this, so it's more of a luxury good and putting them in that luxury status. Um, and then just getting eyeballs, testing at a low cost, and then increasing your marketing spend. That's really the best way for them. But honestly, like there's a lot of mistakes that were made in the beginning, just because you need to test a lot of things for something that you're not 100% sure on.
Yeah, because like one of the things you mentioned before we hopped on here was not spending money on certain platforms and leveraging other platforms. W- I know like Reddit recently went public, and I know people on Reddit really trust like things on Reddit. So how have you taken that approach by looking at those other avenues other than like doing like Google ads or Meta ads or boosting Instagram posts because they're easy that you've been finding some success in?
Yeah, I think I think the world of Meta, everyone has been freaking out about tariffs recently. They're going from up 30 to 50%, let's say. And people are freaking out. Like, this is the biggest news of the year. If you look at Google and Meta ads, they've 4x'd in price over the past 4 years.
Hmm.
So, and yet no one's freaking out about that. So that to me tells me like people have not figured out that Google and Meta are like tapped. I tell most of my clients, whatever you're spending on those, cut them by 90%. Now, if it's working, like I have a client right now. We started. She was spending I think 2 or 3 thousand on Meta and Google.
A month,
They're
a day?
a month. I
Okay.
would love for it to be a day, but now she's probably spending 15,000 a month combined. So we've whatever that is 6 to 7x'd it on the amount because it was working well, and it's just a matter of like a lot of people get comfortable with the spending that they're like, oh well, it's working. I don't need much more money. It's like no, like if it's working, like let's keep it going until it stops working. We want to spend that money, and then we can improve. But for me, I see a lot of people they're just not getting the return on investment. They're barely breaking even. Some people are just not breaking even. And so we really focus on like that organic lead flow. It's a combination of SEO, Facebook, LinkedIn, all different Nextdoor, Reddit, like any group that you can imagine that is going to be relevant, we want to be there. And then we really push heavily on, once those people are on the sites, we can get a ton more data, retarget them. That's where you spend your Meta and your Google ads on.
Yeah, those are the sort of things I have not been able to really figure out how to do. I was just testing out Google Ads for a specific amount of time, and I was getting a lot of wrong phone calls. Like they were looking for like different finance companies. They're like, "Hey, I need help with my statement." I'd be like, "Who are you looking for?" They're like, "Charles Schwab." I'm like, "This isn't Charles Schwab." They'd be like, "Edward Jones." I'm like, "This isn't Edward Jones." So I was getting a lot of wrong phone calls. So they were working, but not for the right reason.
Yeah, if you had talked to a marketing agency, they would have said, Joshua, we're killing it. We just got you 5 phone calls a day. This is the major flaw with the marketing agency. They're really focused on offense, but they don't really care. As long as the ball goes in, they don't care.
Well, I mean, they weren't the. I wouldn't even consider those phone calls because they weren't even calling me. They were trying to call someone else.
Well, and that's why they have horrible churn throughout the year. Like marketing agencies are just not good at that. And then they say, well, there's something wrong with you, or maybe you didn't give us the right tracking, or maybe you didn't, it's like, You
It's
just
not
can't
my
win.
job. That's your job.
Exactly, exactly. So it's a huge flaw with the agency model, though.
Yeah. I'm not sure like what I believe and not believe on what I see on social media in terms of certain marketers and whatnot.
I would believe 10% of it.
10% of everything. Yeah, I don't know. Like people claim like they're making a ton of money and then they like I look at like the comments and they're all just like generic comments. I've had a couple of like these marketing people on the podcast, not you, but like people who have like seem like have decent followings, and it's just like I don't know. I'm like attempting to figure it out and like decipher what is real and not real. But maybe I should just like stop that game.
I don't know. I think it's normal to want to decipher reality, like truth from fiction. Um, I have a friend of mine who runs a marketing agency, strictly meta ads, and he's really good. He's really, really good. I use him for all my clients that want to use a meta agency. Um, but he is such a bad salesperson because he's like too real. He's like, like I don't know if I'm going to convert it. Every campaign is new. That's the kind of person that I love, because the person who's going to tell, and I tell him like, you're hurting your sales. He's like, I can't guarantee anything.
Just
It's
honest.
way too hard. And the people that are the opposite of that, who are like, all you have to do is run meta ads and you're going to make $1 billion, they're just liars. And
Yeah.
he's upfront about that. And I've worked with him on if we had 10 clients together, I'd say 9 out of 10 are happy with him. And the one of them, they had too difficult requests. It wasn't a good area. He's very upfront about that. So I think it's a tough game because I do want him to be more outgoing and like salesy, but I do think the people that are really aware of it, they know how difficult it is.
Hmm. I guess the strategy for him is he needs to hire a salesperson to take those calls and get out of it.
Definitely, definitely.
So now, is the only thing that you focus on like marketing and lead generation? I know we spoke about like developing strategies and whatnot. Like, I mean, how did you go get into this? Because I mean, you were in school, then working fraternity, then doing some other things in biotech. Like, how did it lead you to here, and how did your experiences help you separate yourself from the folks on social media that are what's the term? I think the marketing term's like puffery.
Yeah, yeah,
They're, they're using lots
yeah.
of puffery.
Definitely. So I was really starting not in marketing, but in just strategy consulting. That was my original goal for the business. And it still is honestly where I think the future is, of the business. But the problem is strategy isn't a very recurable business. You
Yeah.
build a strategy once and then you run that strategy. And so I was realizing like, if I want to keep making money, I have to figure something out, where we can stay on. And so, the larger consulting firms. So I looked at all the consulting firms that I could find, figuring out like what exactly is the order of operations here. And the strategy is great for large mergers and acquisitions and, these kind of like massive buyouts. So that's great. But again, like most people aren't coming to my consulting firm for a $10 billion mergers and acquisitions deal. So I can't really get that. So I had to build a strategy that worked around kind of that marketing aspect. Over the past, as I've had the business for 5 years, I'd say after 2 years of that like marketing push with strategy, I realized like, yes, okay, lead gen, that's great. But some of our clients are actually growing fast enough where, even if they wanted to grow more, they would start having issues with the fulfillment side.
Hmm.
And then B, some of them were just growing too fast and they were telling us like, all right, we need to pause because now I need to hire 5 people, or now I need to. So that's really where that second piece of the business became, which is the so you, it's famously known as like God mode, grow, optimize, and then destroy. Ultimately, you want to destroy parts of that process in some way. So instead of being the HR recruiting platform, we really focused on automating and then empowering the people within their company to have this. So that's really been, and we just happened to get super lucky right at the same time as AI started taking off. We were super early in that. I actually was getting my master's in computational biology, which is basically AI for biotech. So I learned a lot of this stuff years and years before, and then it just happened to get lucky at the right time. So we really, where I look at us is like, we give you the strategy or 3 or 4 different strategies. We give you the growth method. And then once that starts taking off, we make sure that your chaos is completely removed and you can just focus on like the relationship side.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for all small business owners. I just know sometimes slow, steady growth is okay, and
Yeah.
just bootstrapping and not focusing on like bringing on investors and attempting to 100x something in a day. I mean, that's where I'm at is terms of putting in systems, making sure those systems work well, and that way, once something happens, and something will happen, you have the right systems in place to make sure that you don't drop the ball, or you can't fulfill someone, or you take someone's money and then their project never gets started, or something crazy like that happens, and those sort of things do happen.
Definitely. I think honestly, the first thing that I ask a client, when they say, "Oh, I want a 10x or whatever," so you just do a very basic math. Okay, you've got 100 clients, or you've got 1,000 clients. You're making this much money off of them. So if you had 1,000 clients, like what does that look like in the business? How does that exist? Because you want to 10x your revenue, you can't 10x your fee, right? Most people can't. So how else are you going to, maybe you can increase your price 10%, but how are you going to get those extra 900 or so clients? And what does that look like from a fulfillment standpoint? And that's where a lot of the mic drop happens to them. They realize like, yeah, I could probably keep going. Maybe I could take on 20 or 30% more, but I just don't have the ability to take on 500 clients more. Like that would just be chaotic. So that's where you kind of have to build in the the systems, yes, but also kind of the level setting. And then they realize like that's not a job that I want to. I mean, a lot of people do not want to be billionaires. They want to make a few $1,000,000 a year, grow their business, and then ultimately sell or hand it over to their family. Um,
Mm.
so having those conversations early is really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all about the money all the time.
No,
People say they want to be a billionaire, but I don't know. I don't know if you really want to,
it's a hard life.
unless you inherit it, then that's an easy life.
That's
Or
an easy life.
marry into it. Those
That's
are the
also a
easier
pretty easy
choices.
life.
Well, that's cool. Other than that, I mean, in terms of building out these systems and strategies, is there anything that you're currently working on that you want to share with folks that are looking for help with strategizing what they're doing in the business and how to optimize it efficiently?
Well, I'm curious what you're kind of thinking of in terms of growing your business. I'm happy to just kind of like, role play this out loud.
Yeah. I mean, right now, the goal is to be the best I can in terms of investing, coming up with strategies. And so becoming, I guess, if you're in marketing, I guess, an authority. Like, how do you become like that authority of like, hey, like, this is the person that you need to see to solve XYZ problem. So I'm working on being the best from an investment standpoint. So that way I can share a track record that people can't argue with. On the flip side, working on doing more with social. We have 3 different offices. So we have 3 different local Google addresses. So we have office in Arizona, office in Florida and an office in Maryland. I think Texas is next. I think we're going to Austin.
Nice.
Uh, so just expanding the reach that way. So essentially, I have a team of some folks that help me with certain things. But basically, it's just me that does all the investment strategies, all the investment meetings, and things like that. So I mean, the that's the Achilles heel is like how do you separate yourself from the, you know, J.P. Morgan private client group or Fidelity, or how do you overcome the fired people on Reddit that say they would never work with a financial advisor ever because it's not worth it. So those sort of things.
What does your ideal customer look like?
Well, step one is they have to be able to use a computer. And step two is they can't be a jerk. So we start there. And then step three is are they willing to pay $36.99 for a consultation? Because I've met people who claim to have one guy I met with, he said he has $5 million. I said, yeah, the consult's $36. And he's like, you can't waive that? I go, no.
It's a gate.
It's a test. Are you? And I say, if you hate me, I'll give you the money back. But it's like a test. Like, is this person a buyer or are they just shopping around wasting time? I want people that are serious and I want people who respect my time. And if I show up to a consult and you pay $36, you're probably going to show up because it's not about the money. It's about the act of like doing it versus it's just a free consult. So I was like, oh, I can miss that. Like, I'm tired. I'm not going to show up. I'm not going to reschedule. So that's the starting point.
What age group? Where do they typically find you? Is it Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn? What does that look like?
It's mostly all online based. So people will find me and then, I get their info and then I immediately send them a message. And then as soon as I get the lead, I call them. Hopefully it's within 30 seconds or less. And then if they don't respond to a call, we created a system that's it'll touch them at least 3 more times. So they'll get at least 5 different touch points at minimum. Which at that point, if someone hasn't responded after 5 different touch points, you know, salespeople will say, call them until they tell you to go screw yourself. Me, I'm just like, well, eventually I'll put them into another system where I'll say like, hey, like I reached out several times a month ago or so and never heard back. Is this something that you're still serious about? And then I just go through the system and that's it. I would say the goal though is to start doing larger strategies for more sophisticated investment um, investments for like people that have like more complex systems in place, such as like business owners or people that have trusts and whatnot. That would be more fun projects, but they would be harder projects. But I like doing the harder projects because they're more fulfilling rather than talking to someone's like, I have 30,000 in credit card debt. How do you get me out of this hole?
Yeah, yeah. I think and so they're finding you like is it through the Google profiles, like just through SEO, or are they finding you through the podcast, or are you posting a lot and that's how they're finding you? Are you running ads?
No ads anymore. I would say they're all through like Google, Google ads and Thumbtack.
Thumbtack. Okay, excellent. Um, so I have some ideas, but I think I don't want to give them all away to you
No,
and
you don't
tell
have to give
everyone
them
else.
away. I mean,
No,
that's
no,
where
but
I'm at.
I
That's where I'm at. I mean, like I have too many ideas, but not enough time, effort, or resources to do them all. Such as like I wrote like 3 kids books. I'm working on my 4th kid book about finance. I've done webinars that I don't know. I thought they were pretty good. I put a lot of time and effort into them, but they didn't pan out. I've also like did a funnel for like a low ticket thing. I never launched it, but I did it. But I just don't know what to do because I'm not a marketing person, and marketing can be expensive.
Yeah. I think your top of funnel stuff is pretty good. I'm really curious because I see this a lot on my side. Is like there's a lot of private equity guys that are talking about, here's how to roll up a business, and they put a seminar, basically a webinar, but it's on YouTube and it's free, and that leads them to get, hundreds of clicks. I think that's probably like one of the best ways for you, but it's super super saturated, and so it's a really tough one. I mean, I'm almost thinking it's more of a middle funnel issue than anything else. I'm so curious if you get. I want to like tag some of your stuff on your site and see if we can increase just the number of people that either book a call or even text you, or because there's a ton of new AI tools. And then if you're messaging them 3 or 4 times, hitting them on a couple different touch points, that's great. But people honestly don't usually make actions. So what we do is, and I can share this with you afterwards, but we figure out a way to just like get them to answer the phone at the right time, and just be like, hey, saw you did X, Y, and Z. You never booked a call. I have 30 minutes right now if you have some time, or I have 30 minutes tomorrow at 4 p.m. That type of like forcing them to have the ball in their court, that seems to be the best thing, because people are just like, they're tire kickers, not for a bad reason either. It's just they're just busy.
Yeah, I'm learning that now with a wife, a kid, and then another kid on the way. That
Oh,
sometimes
nice.
things go by the wayside.
Yeah, people are busy, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, it is. Well, sweet. Uh, where would people be able to find you? Where are you like most active? If anyone that's here wants to find Justin.
Yeah, so I would say Twitter, Justin underscore Abrams one, I think it is. I'll just like post my own thoughts there. On LinkedIn, for sure, they can follow me, Justin Abrams. And then if they want to just, again, we have a free booking a consultation. They can go on our website. It's aryocg.com. So aryoconsultinggroup.com. And I'm in Boston, so if they are in the area, always down to grab a coffee and chat, and try and get some business for them.
Awesome. Well, Justin, it was fun, and we'll see everyone next time. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.